Right, so Boris Johnson, the greased piglet, as David Cameron once described him, is hoping to slip through the grasp of the Privileges Committee today. And if I've got this video out on time, he'll still be giving evidence if you feel charitable enough to call it that. I'll dig into the events of that, however, tomorrow. But today it's worth looking at what has led up to it over the last few days and remind ourselves a little of what has already been said and done over the last several months, really, before we listen to what they say this time around, as well as looking particularly at Johnson's defence ahead of time and those seeking to defend him. First and foremost, Johnson absolutely did mislead Parliament over Downing Street parties. Whilst we obeyed the rules, he repeatedly was seen not to. His defence, if you can call it that, you've got to be pretty generous to do so, is to say he didn't intentionally mislead Parliament. He admits that his claim that rules had always been followed turned out not to be correct. He claims he corrected the record each time rules turned out to have been broken. He is hidden behind an excuse that he followed advice given to him by a special advisor that it was okay to do everything that he did. His argument, therefore, is that there is no evidence that he intentionally or recklessly misled the House. Please do pick yourselves up off the floor as soon as you've finished pissing yourselves laughing. He's got his defenders, though. Oh, yes. Brendan Clark-Smith, the Tory MP for Bassetlaw, tweeted out in response to Johnson's written submission that it confirms what we already knew, that he did not mislead the House and acted in good faith. Yeah, right. Andrea Jenkins retweeted the Daily Fail, so of course defending Johnson, saying the evidence Bozo submitted shows his case is clear, compelling and strong. Yeah, so is Gorilla Glue, sunshine. It can still make a bloody mess. Others have been doing the media rounds today saying much the same thing, defending the indefensible, making complete burks out of themselves whilst they've been at it. That said, other Tories have been a little bit more honest as a Tory gets, and attacked Johnson's defences as weak. Understatement, surely. David Davis said the idea that ministers just say whatever special advisers write for them is, and I quote, unutterable bollocks. Here's the thing, though. No matter what he said and what he plans to say now, the Sue Gray report has already laid bare much of what actually happened. There is much we still haven't learned of that could be brought up now that wasn't included in their report. But what Johnson needs to answer to in his submission is unlikely to have addressed an awful lot of what's coming. There will, of course, be some Andrea Jenkins and Brendan Clark-Smith types looking at this saying Sue Gray is a Starmer plant and she sought to bring down dear Boris. And although the optics of Gray taking a job from Starmer are poor right now, if Starmer had a grain of political astuteness, he'd have avoided the publicity of that move until afterwards. But the simple fact of the matter was, Gray got passed over for promotion within the civil service and got a better offer from Labour. None of this happened until after her report was published. No harm, no foul in that case. So suck it up, buttercups. Johnson's defence going into today hinges on intent being proved, though, and indeed, that does need to be proved. So what have they got to try and prove this then? What do we know already? Well, there was the ambushed with the cake moment. Johnson is apparently saying no cake was actually eaten and nobody even sang happy birthday, so that's all right then. Do you remember seeing the photographs of wine being smuggled in suitcases? Always a clear sign of honesty and integrity when you have to sneak the booze in, isn't it? Johnson is apparently saying he thought drinking at work was in the rules, wine time Fridays, that they were work exemptions, and he felt it was his duty to attend no fewer than 5 drinks events. He is also apparently insisting that events in number 10 being not very socially distanced was an unintended and unavoidable consequence of working in an old, cramped London townhouse. You could have just not had them then, like the rest of us, for example. How about that garden party where we saw Johnson sat at a table with Carrie Antoinette, Dominic Cummings and Johnson's principal private secretary at that time, Martin Reynolds. Reynolds emailed out invites to this and afterwards is documented as telling Johnson, well, we seem to have got away with that. Not necessarily, Marty, old boy, and indeed you ended up resigning in the aftermath, didn't you? Not exactly an act of innocence, is it? Not what you'd expect to come out of an accidental breach of the rules, if that was indeed the case. But when it came to the Gray report itself, Sue Gray having investigated no fewer than 16 incidents, not all of them involving Johnson personally, the details of rule breaking were laid bare, and the background to it all cannot ever be forgotten. So many loved ones lost as, whilst Johnson and co partied and lied, people across the country died. We had one of the worst death rates in the world when COVID hit. We had to take it on the chin, Johnson told us. Whilst we were left to do just that, cheese and wine parties were being had. The Prime Minister's birthday, drinking themselves silly to the point one individual at a leaving do on the 18th of June 2020 threw up, and a fight broke out in the number 10 cabinet room. A karaoke machine had been brought to this same event as well by the Director General for Propriety and Ethics. The culture that arose with Johnson in charge, feel for the poor staff who had to clean that sort of mess up and cop abuse whilst they were at it, because that featured in the Grey Report too. Whilst the second wave of COVID hit around Christmas, killing more people than the first wave did, Johnson's lot were planning a secret Santa instead of planning to deal with the crisis. When we were texting loved ones goodbyes as they were passing away, unable to see them, dying alone in hospital, this lot were WhatsApping each other about getting away with it all. Across the 20-month period Sue Gray examined, there was no respect for how we, the general public, were affected as long as they could have their jollies. Junior civil servants felt they were safe to engage in this behaviour because their seniors were, because senior civil servants, and seemingly ministers as well, not least the PM, were doing this. Johnson lied to Parliament about not knowing about events on the 13th of November. He lied to the House by saying all guidance was being followed when they seemed to engage in a culture of flouting the rules whenever they could. Yet now Johnson is trying to get off on a technicality regarding intent. The ministerial code is clear that Johnson should have offered his resignation, yet because he was the final arbiter of that code, a gaping great issue that has to be addressed now in and of itself, not to mention that he has no honour whatsoever, he never, of course, enforced this on himself. The Grey Report, as damning as it was, absolutely forms part of this Privileges Committee showdown today, as it should, but it's only part. There's more. The committee, unlike the Grey Report, also has the power to mete out disciplinary measures against Johnson. A suspension for more than 10 days from the House, for example, is sufficient grounds to trigger a recall vote if the people of Uxbridge and South Ruislip get organised to do so. And well they should, given Johnson has spent more time coining it in on the US speech circuit of late than doing the job he was elected to, which is to represent them. I'll be watching the events unfold with interest. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also, look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on that Linktree link in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Cheers, folks.